Wait, don't you see who was with me? Someone asked. Then everyone's eyes landed on Johee. Her face turned bright red as she looked down. Johee was a strong hunter, ranked B, but people forgot about her because she didn't fight much. She had the same rank as Taesik though. If two B-rank hunters work together, a C-rank hunter shouldn't be able to beat them. The team members nodded, getting it. While everyone was distracted, Jin-Woo sneaked closer to Chul. Why did you lie to them? He whispered. Chul lowered his voice too, and replied. I thought you were keeping your skills a secret for a reason. Was I being too curious? But it turned out, Jin-Woo was actually avoiding a lot of trouble, thanks to Chul. This just proved that having experience really pays off. Never, sir, someone said. Considering how much you've helped me, I'm happy to return the favor. Another person replied. Just then, one of the surveillance team members walked up to them. Mr. Song, can you come with us? We need your help with this report, someone asked. Right, he replied. Now only Jin-Woo and Johee were left at the scene. The sun had set a while ago and Chul and the surveillance team were gone. Johee felt weird, because Jin-Woo seemed really different from before. She waited for a bit then walked up to him slowly. Hey, want to take a walk? She asked. Jin-Woo wondered if she was talking about getting dinner. He was starving after all the exercise he'd just done. Jin-Woo agreed. And they started walking together under the streetlights. They didn't rush or try to get ahead of each other. Instead, they just strolled side by side, like they had done it a million times before. Johee kept her eyes fixed on her shoes, but every time she looked up her gaze would automatically drift towards Jin-Woo. She tried not to think about it too much, but she just couldn't help herself. Being around Jin-Woo used to feel really comfortable, but now he seemed different. He gave off a strong, powerful energy that made her feel a little nervous. Talking to Jin-Woo was tough for Johee now. What had happened to him? He had beaten a strong B-rank hunter, but that wasn't all. He was totally different too. Johee didn't want to snoop, because it was obvious Jin-Woo wanted to keep things to himself. Still, she couldn't stop wondering about the changes in him. Sometimes she wished he would start talking and break the silence. For a moment his quietness seemed almost mean. But then Johee stopped walking and decided to speak up. Jin-Woo took the small glowing stone from Juhee's trembling hand. It was the same essence stone he had given her not long ago in a secret underground temple. Johee looked like she was going to be sick and said, I don't think I can eat today, as she handed it back to him. Her eyes were wide with fear, and her whole body was shaking. This wasn't the first scary thing that had happened to her, and now she had just seen something else terrifying happen right in front of her. Johee was a girl who lived with fear all around her. Jin-Woo got why she didn't want to grab dinner right now. No big deal, you don't have to return this today, he said. But Johee shook her head. I'm heading back to my hometown next week, she replied. It seemed like she was leaving town for good, and quitting her job as a hunter too. Jin-Woo would miss her if she left. Is it because of what happened? He asked. Juhee's face fell as she thought about that day. It's not the only reason, she said quietly. Jin-Woo quickly switched topics to cheer her up. Where's home for you? Jin-Woo asked. Listen, Johee replied, her expression suddenly turning serious. Jin-Woo noticed the change in her mood, and wiped the smile off his face. What's up? He asked. Johee looked deep into his eyes. What she saw there amazed her. His eyes sparkled with a strong will to live. Back in the underground temple when everyone else was terrified and hopeless, Jin-Woo's eyes had burned with determination and strength. She'd gotten a close look at him, and one thing stood out. His eyes. They were the eyes of someone who never gives up. Those two eyes had sparked hope in many people, including her. He'd saved several lives, and she was one of them. Nobody else could have pulled that off. Her heart began to pound as memories of that day came flooding back. But when it came to her old job, Johee didn't have any regrets about quitting. She knew it wasn't the right fit for her. He felt a pang of sadness because she wouldn't get to hang out with Jin-Woo as much. She wondered, would he think she's weird if she asked to meet up again? Some things are better left behind. Thinking about them too much can be painful. He put on a big smile and shook her head. It's nothing, she said. If you're ever in Beeson, give me a call, okay? Hey, I'll take you out for some amazing sashimi, Jin-Woo said with a smile. Juhee's face lit up, and she replied, sounds good. The two of them grinned at each other, but Johee had something on her mind that she didn't say out loud. Instead she just said goodbye, and walked away. The walk home felt super long, Meanwhile, Jin-Woo headed to his apartment, after parting ways with Ju-hee. As he got closer, he could see the old building where he lived, coming into view in the distance. Jin-Woo lived on the 9th floor. As he walked towards his building, he passed by some parked cars. Just as he was about to go inside, a voice called out to him, "Young man, Unit 92. It was the security guard. Jin-Woo had known the guard for a long time, so he walked over to chat with him. "Hey, haven't you gone home yet?" he asked. The guard replied, "I'm working the night shift today." Jin-Woo nodded, understanding. Then, the guard went into his office, and came out with a package. "Hey, this is your name on it," someone said to Jin-Woo. He took the package and replied, "Oh, thank you." As he opened it, he saw that it was from the Hunters Association. Wait a minute. Was today the day his new phone was supposed to arrive? Jin-Woo pulled out the shiny new phone from the box. It looked awesome. He had seen on the news how some people were super interested in hunters, and really wanted one of these special phones. But what really got him mad was that some people were trying to buy them from shady sellers on the black market. Who does that? Jin-Woo remembered someone saying that it's not that their country is poor, it's just that there are too many dishonest people around. Corruption seemed to follow any group with a lot of people. This was true for the Hunters Association and even the military. When an organization became corrupt, money got wasted, and that meant less help for those who really needed it. As a result, things only got worse. The people who needed the most support were usually the ones who suffered the most. This worried me, but so far, everything seemed okay with the delivery. Jin-Woo was waiting for the elevator and had nothing to do, so he decided to check his phone. Jin-Woo's phone was blowing up with notifications. He wondered when he'd have a chance to check them all. 2 numbers stood out, but they didn't look familiar. One number had called him a bunch of times, and the other had sent a ton of texts. Jin-Woo thought it was weird. Who could be trying so hard to reach him? He tilted his head and decided to check the texts first. The first message simply said, "Hello. I'm the one from the hospital. Do you have time to chat this week? Am I bothering you too much? I just really want to talk." At first he had no idea who was texting him, but then he remembered giving his number to a young nurse named Yura Choi. He didn't think she was bugging him exactly, but he got the feeling that talking to her might get annoying later on. For now, let's just forget about it. He also wondered who had been calling him so many times. Should he check and see? Jin-Woo hit the call button, and a catchy pop song blasted from the phone speakers. He had a pretty good idea who was on the other end. The call picked up right away. "Hello," a familiar voice answered, and Jin-Woo couldn't help but smile at how predictable this guy was. "It's me," the voice said. "You can reach me at this number from now on." On the other end of the line, Jin-Woo exclaimed, "Oh, you finally got your cell, boss." Jin-Woo had scribbled down Jin-Ho's phone number, but it didn't ring a bell because he never made the first call. Then Jin-Ho's excited voice came through the line. "I was just about to call you, boss. I've got all our squad members lined up, so I'll swing by to pick you up tomorrow." Jin-Woo could almost see Jin-Ho's bright face lighting up just from hearing his voice. He cracked a smile. "Awesome, see you tomorrow." Just as he hung up, the elevator reached the first floor and the doors slid open with a cheerful ding. Tomorrow was finally going to be raid day. Jin-Woo's heart was racing with excitement. He knew what he had to do, level up as fast as he could. If he became strong enough, he'd have everything he wanted: money, honor, and power. All he had to do was become the best hunter out there. And it all started tomorrow. Meanwhile, on the east coast of the United States, a big news story was breaking. Dong-soo Hachwang, the top S-rank hunter from the powerful scavenger guild, was getting ready for bed when he heard some shocking news. "How did my brother die?" he demanded to know. "Tell me everything. And tell me slow," he said. His brother's name was Dong-soo Kwang. He had just been told that his brother died in a C-rank gate. But something didn't add up. "So 8 squad members were killed, and only 2 survived?" he asked. And to make things even stranger, those 2 survivors were ranked D and E. This really didn't sound right. The brother he knew would never put himself in harm's way to save his teammates. What was really going on? It didn't take much to figure out what had happened to the other 2. They were just temporary hunters, so they weren't expected to make it. Only the lowest ranking hunters, the D and E ranks, survived. All the C-rank hunters, including Dong-soo's brother, were killed. Something wasn't right. Dong-soo's eyes narrowed as he thought about it. Even though he and his brother had been apart since Dong-soo joined a famous guild in the US, His brother always looked out for him when he was back in Korea. The guy wasn't perfect, but he had always been there for his brother. He had planned to bring him to where he was living, once he got settled, but things didn't work out that way. Someone had taken his brother's life. He gritted his teeth, and bit down on his lip. "Send me the information about the 2 people who made it," he said into the phone. "My fax number is," he rattled off the numbers before hanging up. Then, without wasting a second, he dialed another number to call his boss. "Mr. Huang, it's really late," Laura said quickly. "Is something wrong?" But Mr. Huang didn't seem worried about the time. He had a strange question on his mind. "Laura, what if I hurt someone in South Korea?" he asked. Laura was taken aback. "Are you serious?" she replied. Mr. Huang nodded. "Yes, I am." There was a short silence before Laura spoke up again. "Well, here's the thing," she said. "South Korea and the US don't have an agreement to send people back and forth if they commit crimes related to hunting. So, if something happened, you would be tried in the US, because you're a US citizen. We can work out a deal with the government to reduce your time," he said. "That's great news," Mr. Huang replied. Then he dropped a bombshell. "I have to go to Korea. Can you clear my schedule?" His assistant was surprised. "But if you leave suddenly, all our guild projects will come to a standstill." "Mr. Huang. What's going on?" Mr. Huang's expression turned serious. "It's personal," he said quietly. "I don't want to cause any problems for the guild, so how booked is my schedule?" "You're completely filled up for the next 2 months. 2 whole months. That's a long time." "Okay, fine. Just make sure I've got nothing going on after that. I'm not asking for much, just 2 weeks of free time. I'm planning a trip to Korea, and I'll be gone for exactly 2 weeks." "Got it." "What should I tell the big bosses?" "Just say it's a family emergency," he was told. "Tell them my brother died, and I need to go to the funeral." "Got it, sir. I'll take care of that." "Mr. Huang, if there's anything I can do to help." But before he could finish, the line went dead. He hung up the phone. He didn't feel like hearing sympathetic words or advice right now. Suddenly, the fax machine sprang to life. The document he had asked for was finally coming through with a loud venom. He grabbed the papers from the machine and started reading. There were pictures of 2 hunters, along with their names and a little bit about each of them. Jin-Woo, a D-rank hunter, and Jin-Woo Sung, an E-rank hunter. He said to himself. He looked back and forth between the 2 pictures, making up his mind. These guys might be able to give him some answers. And if they were hiding something, they'll regret ever coming out of that dungeon alive. He thought, his anger growing. The next morning, Jin-Woo got a call from Jin-Yo, asking him to come downstairs. When he got outside, he saw a big van waiting in front of his apartment building. "What's going on?" Jin-Woo wondered. He was about to ask the driver to move the van, when the window rolled down. To his surprise, it was Jin-Yo, with a huge smile on his face. "Hey boss, hop in," Jin-Yo said, sticking his hand out the window, and tapping the side of the van. Jin-Woo had expected Jin-Yo to show up in a fancy sports car, since he came from a super rich family, but instead he was driving a big ordinary-looking van. "Isn't your family really wealthy?" Jin-Woo asked. Jin-Yo explained. "I didn't want to draw attention to myself, so I borrowed this van instead of using my own car." Jin-Woo had a big surprise when Jin-Ho picked him up early in the morning. Jin-Ho was driving a brand new van that sparkled on the outside. It wasn't a fancy car, but it looked perfect for their adventures. Jin-Ho was ready to go and seemed super excited about their first day together. As Jin-Woo checked out the new van, Jin-Ho started to worry. "You don't like this kind of car, do you, boss?" he asked. But Jin-Woo just smiled and said, "No, it's good." He hopped into the front passenger seat, and Jin-Ho let out a happy grin. "Here we go, boss," he exclaimed, clearly pumped for their first day together. As he drove, Jin-Woo hummed a tune while gripping the steering wheel tightly. After a while, they pulled into an empty lot and came to a stop with a loud screech. "We're here, boss," his companion announced. 8 other hunters were already waiting for them at the meeting spot. But as Jin-Woo and Jin-Hyo stepped out of the van, they noticed something weird. The gate behind them looked way too small for a C-rank mission. The sound of the van's doors closing echoed through the air. "Tack." The other hunters gathered around, eyeing Jin-Woo and Jin-Hyo with interest. This was definitely not your average group of people. Each one seemed more unusual than the last. Some of the people looked really weak, like they could hardly stand up. One guy seemed like he just came from a hospital bed. Another person appeared to be struggling with drinking problems. What really caught attention was a teenage girl. She looked like a high school student. It didn't seem right for her to be there. Someone asked, "Is it okay to work with someone so young?" The answer was that an advisor had been consulted, and it shouldn't be a problem legally. But the truth is, no one usually hires minors because things can get complicated. If something goes wrong, Jin-Woo nodded in agreement. Since only he and Jin-Hyo would be going inside anyway, everything should be fine. There's no way anything bad could happen with just the two of them. Imagine being part of a team, but not really being there for the adventure. That's what was happening with these people. They were only recruited to fill a spot. You see, to tackle a tough challenge like a C-rank gate, you need a team of 10. Jin-Hyo had gathered 8 hunters, just to meet this requirement. These hunters knew exactly why they were there. They needed the work. Some of them were struggling to make ends meet. Despite having a license to hunt, life as a hunter wasn't working out for them, and that's why they joined Jin-Hyo's team. Most of the applicants were in the same situation as Jin-Hyo. He took a step forward and introduced himself. "I'm Jin-Hyo Yu, the leader of this group, and I'm with Hunter Jin-Woo Sung. We're going inside the dungeon together." He explained that all they had to do was wait near the gate for them. One of the hunters slowly raised their hand, looking a bit unsure. "Wait, we'll really get paid 3 million won for that?" It sounded like a dream come true. All they had to do was show up and sign their names saying they were there. They didn't even have to go into the dungeon or fight anything. And yet, they'd still get a whopping 3,000 won per raid. It was a deal that seemed too good to be true, just for putting their names on a list. The hunters exchanged nervous glances, wondering if they were getting mixed up in something shady. This wasn't like a hero giving money to people who needed it. Jin-Hyo's voice was firm and commanding. "The rules are still the same," he said, his eyes locked seriously on them. "But remember, whatever you see or hear here, it's secret. You can't breathe a word about it." The boss dropped a bombshell. "If you spill our secrets, you'll have to pay 10 times what you earned." The hunters started whispering to each other. What were Jin-Woo and Jin-Hyo doing in the dungeon that was such a big deal? The other 8 hunters were super curious, but they couldn't ask any questions. That was part of the deal. They weren't allowed to ask about what happened in the dungeon. Jin-Woo wanted to keep his strength a secret, so Jin-Hyo had made sure the team would stay quiet. This was all part of Jin-Woo's plan to become a guild master. The hunters murmured among themselves instead of asking Jin-Woo and Jin-Hyo questions. Can those two really clear C-rank dungeons on their own? One of them wondered. They don't look like strong hunters. Another hunter said, "If they're that good, why not join a guild and take on even tougher dungeons?" Someone else asked. Despite their doubts, nobody suggested quitting the team. No way, the offer was too sweet to pass up. Jin-Woo knew this from experience. He had once been tempted by a deal worth 2,000 won. The reason they were offering 1,000 won, more than Dong-suk's price, was because of a secrecy agreement. After what felt like forever, Jin-Woo glanced at the time and elbowed Jin-Hyo. "Time to go," he whispered. Jin-Hyo nodded and clapped his hands to get everyone's attention. "I think that's enough explanation," he said with a smile. It was time to get serious. "I'm not going to make anyone stay if they don't want to," the boss said. "So, does anyone want to quit?" The room was silent. No one raised their hand. Now it was time to head into the unknown. But just as they were about to enter, Jin-Hyo suddenly spoke up. "Hey boss, wait a minute." He rushed back to the van like he had forgotten something important. Jin-Hyo returned, looking a bit awkward in his new gear. "What's with the fancy suit?" someone asked. Jin-Hyo proudly showed off his outfit. "This is a full set of tempered armor made by a master craftsman guild in Italy," he explained. Jin-Woo rubbed his forehead, feeling anxious. He looked at Jin-Hyo, who was covered in steel from head to toe, and it made him uncomfortable. "What's wrong, boss?" Jin-Hyo asked, noticing Jin-Woo's weird expression. But before he could get an answer, Jin-Woo pulled out the sword from Jin-Hyo's waist and dropped it on the ground. Jin-Hyo tried to pick it up, but lost his balance and fell with a loud thud. The sound was like a crunching crons. Jin-Woo took a deep breath, trying to calm down his frustration. "Take that off before I say something I'll regret," a stern voice commanded. Jin-Hyo quickly replied, "Yes, sir." But when he tried to get up, he struggled. "Boss," he said, looking up for help. "What now?" the boss asked, sounding annoyed. Jin-Hyo held out his hands, hoping for assistance. "Could you help me up?" The boss let out a deep sigh, and finally lent a hand. As Jin-Hyo stood up, he asked, "Is this okay, boss, referring to the helmet still on his head. The boss simply replied, "That's fine." To Jin-Ho's delight, they decided he could keep the helmet after all. With a big smile on his face, Jin-Ho jumped through the gate, feeling pretty pleased with himself. Jin-Woo trudged along behind the other hunter. As they stepped inside, the rest of the group gathered near the entrance. One by one of them spoke up. "I don't think those two were very strong." Another hunter nodded in agreement, as they kept an eye on the gate. "Yeah, I know what you mean." Now that a few of them had shared their thoughts, the others started to chime in. "What if those two get themselves killed in the dungeon?" someone asked. Another hunter shrugged. "At least we got paid up front, so it's not all bad," someone else agreed. "That's true." One of the hunters turned to the others and asked, "What were their names again?" A guy with a cast on his leg pulled out his phone to look them up. His friend helped hold him steady, maybe because he was a bit wobbly, or maybe just so he could sneak a peek at the search results. The hunter with the phone said, "Let's see. Jin-Yo and Jin-Woo Sung. The squad leader is only D rank." This news shocked everyone. But the next thing they found out was even crazier. The other guy on the team was E rank. People started to worry. "Isn't a C rank dungeon way too tough for an E rank hunter?" someone asked. It seemed like a really bad idea for a D rank and an E rank hunter to try to conquer a C rank dungeon. "Is this even possible?" someone wondered. The squad leader had never even been on a raid before. What were these young hunters thinking? This mission seemed like a recipe for disaster. It was basically a suicide mission. There was a good reason for the association's rule. You needed at least 10 people to take down a C-rank gate. A gray-haired man shook his head and lit a cigarette. "Skumptkin," he said. "Young people can be too brave for their own good." He puffed on his cigarette and the smoke floated up into the air. The hunters didn't say a word. They just stood there feeling uneasy. It seemed like they had just helped someone get hurt, or worse. Imagine watching someone die right in front of you, just inside the gate. It's a terrible thought. But that's not all. There's something else that's really bothering them. They're also sad because they won't get any more money. Even though they already got paid up front, they could have earned a lot more if they had gone on 18 more raids like their contract said. It was bad news. The chances of those two returning were super slim. "We should at least report what happened, right?" someone said. "You're right. What if we get in trouble for this too?" Just then, a loud rumbling sound filled the air. Vime. Jin-Woo and Jino appeared at the gate, looking totally exhausted. Jino was breathing really hard. Huff, huff. They were both sweating and steam was rising from their bodies. Everyone let out a sigh of relief. Os. At least they had made it back safely. The hunters were thrilled to see Jin-Woo and Jino return, and they welcomed them back with big smiles. Everyone thought Jin-Woo and his partner had barely escaped from the entrance. But that wasn't what happened at all. The hunters' faces changed when someone yelled, "The gate is closing." People turned around to see what was going on. "Oh my god. And look," they exclaimed. It seemed like they might have defeated the boss. Because the gate was starting to disappear, just like it was supposed to after a big win. The 8 hunters looked shocked, but Jin-Woo didn't pay attention to their stares. He asked quietly, "Where's the next one?" His partner replied, "It's about an hour from here, boss." Jin-Woo gave a simple command. "Let's go." Then he and his partner, Jin-Yo, started walking towards their van, ready for the next challenge.